Has your little one just started solids and you're finding it tricky to know exactly where to start? You're not alone. I talk to customers about this sort of thing every day in the Nutrition Village because there's so much information out there on the internet and so much conflicting information often from family and friends about what and how and when to start solids. It can feel like a little bit of a minefield. So stick around because today I'm going to try and answer some of those really burning questions that people have about starting solids. Hi guys, I'm Tara, I'm the dietitian at Little Ones, and today I'm going to go through some of the really burning questions that I often get asked about starting solids with little ones. If you like the look of this video and if you want to see more really helpful free tips and tricks about sleep and nutrition, then give us a follow. The Little Ones channel has got really amazing resources coming out regularly, so make sure that you subscribe to our channel. Okay, so first up we have, what is the best age to start solids? So the usual recommendation, it does differ per country, but the usual recommendation is at around 6 months and not before 4 months. So around 6 months, around 26 weeks is the usual recommendation. That is because we want, at around 6 months, little ones start to run out of their iron stores that they have left over from pregnancy. So it's really important to start getting some iron in there. And it also starts to become a window that's quite important for little ones to be introducing new textures and flavors and things like that. Between 6 and 12 months, that's an important window there. So we want to start introducing those there so that little ones can get used to those textures while they're still sort of willing to do that, and flavors. And then not before 4 months. So before 4 months, the research suggests that it can be not best for a little one's gastrointestinal tract to be starting solids before then. And also up until 6 months, our little one will be getting everything that they need, complete nutrition from their milk feed. So from either their breast feeds, formula feeds, or if you're mixed feeding, they'll be receiving 100% of the nutrition needs from those milk feeds. So how do I know if my baby is ready for solids? So there are a few signs of readiness for solids, but the most important sign of readiness for solids is having that really, really good solid head and neck control. So when we're starting solids, we're going to be swallowing foods, and it can be a risk for choking because it's something new that little ones are doing, and they need to be quite focused on getting the food, pushing the foods from the front to the back of their mouth and swallowing those foods well. And if they don't have that good head and neck control, it can be difficult for them to be focusing on doing that well. So that would be the number one. So we often hear, signs of readiness, and they're usually given in a list, but we do want to focus on that one being a really, really important sign of readiness for solids. And there are other important signs as well, like babies opening their mouth with a spoon, reaching out and being interested in the foods that you're eating. They are all really good signs as well. When you put food into their mouth, that they're moving it to the back of their throat with their tongue and swallowing that food, they're also really, really important signs. But that good head and neck control is what we really want to be focusing on, making sure that baby can sit up quite really, really well supported. Or ideally, if they can sit up completely unsupported. Exactly. So what should be my baby's first foods? This is probably the most common question I get, what the foods should actually be. And there are some foods of focus. There's no rules, but there would be some areas of focus that I usually want my clients and customers to focus on. So they would be things like iron-rich foods. Because little ones start to run out of those stores of iron that they got from their mum during pregnancy, they start to need a source of iron because breast milk and formula don't have enough iron in them to support the growing needs of a baby from that age. So what we need to do is make sure that we're including those iron-rich foods in first foods. So there's two types of iron. There's heme iron and non-heme iron. Heme iron is the iron found in meat, and that has been converted already into the kind of iron that we use in our blood. And then there's non-heme iron, and that comes from plants. It's just as good. It hasn't been converted into the iron that we need already. So just to make that a little bit more clear, so the heme iron sources are things like meat, chicken, fish, turkey, pork, things like that contain heme iron, those animal sources of iron. And then we have non-heme iron, so things like tofu, green leafy vegetables, nuts and seeds. Those are your sources of non-heme iron. So we do want to focus on iron-rich foods. We lose quite a bit of that when we are converting it over. So what we want to do with those non-heme iron, those plant sources of iron, is make sure that we're having some vitamin C along with them, because that can help in increasing the amount that we end up absorbing. The next thing I would suggest is focusing on energy dense foods. So if your baby has already started solids, you would know that they often only eat a really small amount, which is totally fine because they have very small tummies, but they are growing really quickly. So we do want to make sure they're getting a bit of bang for their buck with their nutrition. So introducing energy dense foods, these foods have a really high amount of energy per gram compared to other foods. Introducing those can help to make sure that your baby's getting that energy and to help with their growth, support their growth. That would be things like starchy vegetables are good energy dense foods, so things like potatoes, sweet potato, corn, bread is an energy dense food. Just making sure your baby's ready for that texture though is important. Things like, again, nuts and seeds, and again, texturally it's important to make sure that they're very, very finely ground. Things like dairy, full-fat dairy products, these are all some examples of energy-dense foods that can help support that growth in our little ones. And finally, we have fruits and vegetables. So these would be other foods of focus that I would suggest to people that are starting solids with their babies, just because we do have that critical window that I was talking about before between 6 and 12 months where little ones will be more interested in taking on those new flavors and textures. And so we want to capitalize on that window. So making sure that they are being introduced to those bitter flavors of vegetables specifically, just because they can be a trickier one once a little one's 12 months to start introducing them, because they're not as receptive to those sort of more bitter flavors of vegetables. Okay, so what about allergen foods? So the common allergens, it's really, really important to introduce these at around 6 months, but not before 4 months again. So at around the same time that you're starting solids with your little one, introducing those common allergens as well. As the research is starting to show that introducing the common allergens earlier than we used to introduce them, which was often waiting until after 12 months, so earlier being at around 6 months and not before 4 months, can actually help to decrease the little one's risk of developing an allergy later on in life. And once we've introduced those common allergens, we want to continue to introduce those foods a couple of times a week at least once they've been introduced, because that's also can be protected in your little one not developing an allergy later on. So what is the priority? Is the priority milk feeds or is it solids? So from 0 to 12 months, the priority nutrition is definitely milk feeds. So your breast feeds, your formula feeds, or both. If you're mixed feeding. This is the priority nutrition 100%, especially until 6 months. And then it's still the priority from 6 to 12, but solids do become important at 6 months. So that age-old saying, food before 1 is just for fun, that's not true. We do, as I've mentioned before, we do know that little ones need that support from nutrition to meet their needs of iron and other nutrients as well, but specifically iron. And so we do want to also be making sure that our little ones are starting those solids at around 6 months. So another question that I get all the time is, what kind of high chair is ideal? So there is no specific brand that I would recommend, but I would suggest making sure that your little one has a high chair that is fully supporting their back and neck. So keeping them fully supported upright so they're really comfortable, but really, really sitting well and straight, looking straight ahead and comfortable in their high chair. If you've already bought a high chair that doesn't have that complete back support, if you're feeling your little one's not supported completely upright, rolling up some towels and putting them behind your baby, or some small sort of hand towels, just to make sure that they're really, really supported is really important, just so that they have that really, really strong support behind their back. And then secondly, what is also really important, and a lot of people don't know this, is making sure that there's a footrest on the high chair that babies can rest their feet flat against. If you can imagine as an adult going out to eat dinner and sitting on a tall bar stool that doesn't have any foot support, and how tiring that can be. And we're used to eating, we're not learning a new skill. So thinking about that, and that's what it might feel like for a little one if they don't have that foot support to help them really balance. And that also helps to keep their posture really straight for that strong head and neck support as well. So if you've bought a high chair that doesn't have a foot support, it's totally fine. Just make sure that you try and makeshift something. I have seen so many awesome things in my time as a dietitian, working with kids. Some people will tape thing, use lots and lots of sticky tape or sellotape to try and tape something onto their high chair that their little one's feet can be supported by. And or people have cut amazing things out of wood that slot into the high chair, or putting stools underneath that reach their little one's feet. The little one's feet aren't super heavy, so using something like sellotape isn't the worst idea. You can do that and it's easy to remove. But whatever you do, just try and make sure that they do have something that they can rest their feet on, and that it's growing with the child, so that if their feet start to come a bit long for it, then moving it a little bit further down as they grow. Okay, so finally the question, when should I introduce utensils? I personally believe that utensils should be introduced around the same time as starting solids. And by that I mean offering a baby a spoon to self-feed with when you can. Sometimes it can be hard, you're in a rush and you want to be feeding baby yourself with the spoon, and that's totally understandable. But where you can, if you can grab 2 spoons, that's what I always recommend. Load one up with the food for the baby, or smearing the food on there, and offering that to the baby, and then when they've finished that one, swapping with a newly preloaded spoon and continuously swapping throughout the meal so that they can self-feed, I think is a fantastic thing to start doing as soon as you can, sort of around that 6-month mark. The earlier the better when starting those new skills. Okay, thanks so much for listening today to the what, how and when of starting solids. If you have any more questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments below and I'll get through those questions throughout the week. If you liked this video and you want to see more, don't forget that you can subscribe to our channel. We also have great sleep tips on our channel as well, coming out really regularly. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks so much for your questions.